people manager and looking for ways to deal with remote communication challenges, then this episode is for you. This is the Guiding Voice podcast series, the Guiding Voice for a Better Future. Folks, I'm your host Naveen Samala, just a fellow IT professional, but on a mission to shape the careers and lives of millions across the globe. Through the Guiding Voice, we drive conversations that matter, conversations that add value to your life and your career. And in every episode, successful leaders across the globe share some insightful wisdom as well as knowledge so that each one of our audience will acquire more knowledge by tuning into the Guiding Voice per every minute than any other podcast in this space. Thank you so much for joining me. And we are extremely pleased to have Mitadru Dey, part of our journey in shaping the careers and lives of millions across the globe. Mitadru, much awaited episode, but glad to have you part of the journey and hearty welcome to the Guiding Voice.
Thank you so much, Naveen, for inviting me. What truly differentiates this podcast with other is the focus on getting on the point while discussing a topic. And it's an honor to be part of this journey to help fellow professionals. And before we get into the questions, and I was talking to Naveen before the podcast that some of the milestones episodes, and definitely I recommend all the viewer to watch if they have not watched. It really inspired me about the podcast. So yeah, looking forward to have a chat with you, and thank you all the listeners for setting aside time to listen, because I know it's so many things going on, and setting aside time to watch this, it's a lot. So I'm really grateful.
All right, yeah. Pleasure to have you as well, and thanks for the kind words, Mitadru. Without further ado, let's get into our conversation. And maybe you can quickly talk about your career journey, right? Right now, you are also into a pro bono career coaching and all. So, how did your career start, and what it took for you to reach where you are today?
Sure. I grew up in Calcutta in West Bengal, and my aspiration was to become a civil servant with Indian government, which never happened. I never wanted to study economics. I ended up studying economics. So things I didn't want to do in life, I ended up doing that. So that's how I got into corporate jobs, because there was nothing else for me to do, and all my friends were doing it. So I took a shot. That really changed my life, and I had the opportunity to have great managers in my career who really pushed me and inspired me to think beyond my day-to-day job. So with my current organization, I've been with that organization for 16 years, where I had the opportunity to build out teams from ground up in different parts of India, in the US, and I support internal clients globally and lead initiatives, giving back to communities across regions. I had the opportunity to manage a team early days in my career, which I enjoy till date. I had one misconception when I was early in my career, that team leaders or managers, they don't do work, they just do meetings. So that was my motivation to become a team leader, because I don't have to do work, I just have to do meetings, which which I realized it was so misconception, and I had to learn in hard ways to manage a team. And that triggered me to think about how I can, work with other aspiring team leaders and managers, because managing people, managing team, it's a tough job.
Yeah, I understand. And throughout this 16 years of career journey, what is one favorite failure? Okay, maybe what I'm trying to pull from you is there a situation wherein you aspired for something but that didn't happen, and because of which some other better thing has come to your way? Like, is there anything of that sort?
Yeah, sure. As I was telling you, that when I first became a team leader, I thought I was a good performer as an individual contributor. So becoming a team leader would be an easy job. And what I did, which were wrong, is that I used to take out my team for lunch and dinner. I thought, okay, just providing the meals will help me getting a good rating in front of my management, and it never happened. I still remember the meeting one of my vice president had with my team, just to see how I am performing. He had a 1 hour meeting, and after that, first thing he told me that I was in fool's paradise. I thought you were a good team leader, but you are not. So you really need to pull your socks up and do well. So that led me almost into a depression. I lost hope to work, and I didn't feel like going to work. and he was a great people manager, and he realized that something wrong with me, and he had a conversation with me, and he told me one thing which I still apply today, is that when you manage a team, you need to think from the other person's shoes. What's other person's skill set, what he or she is good at, not what you think you are good at will reflect on your team. So I still apply that principle in managing teams.
Yeah, definitely we have to observe the best in people and try to leverage that, which will add as a complement to the team. Right, it makes absolute sense. And now let's move to the core of today's topic, which is more about this remote communication, right? So, what are the challenges that the leaders today are facing with regard to communicating with their teams remotely?
So there are three challenges I can think about. First one is that building trust with your team. When you are in person in office, it is very easy to interact with people. You turn around, you talk to someone, or you just stand up and talk to people, or you meet people in cafeteria or canteen. But it doesn't happen in remote situations. So building a trust, I would say it's a big challenge, because every time you want to speak to someone, you need to message someone, say, "Hey, can you got into a Zoom call, or can I call you?" And it doesn't come naturally to build trust with your team. So that's one. Second would be effective collaboration. What happened that when you are working with a team on a project and you want to talk to your teammate, it is much easier to get into a conference room and talk to them, brainstorms, use whiteboard. With due respect to technology, I know a lot of things you can do virtually, but again, you can't create that vibe and in-person energy of collaboration in a virtual world. The third and most important from managerial perspective is communicating difficult decisions. Before pandemic, when all of us used to go to work 5 days a week and 6 days, I mean, depending on where you work from, if you have to communicate a change, especially which is not a great news, you need to get into a conference room and you need to share that knowledge. Right now, you just can't do it because you may not get everyone at the same time. You meet people in a different time zone. They may be off. And then once you share the news, it will run faster. So before you communicate to your team member who was not present, the person will get to know. So communicating, especially difficult decisions, is a big challenge in remote setup.
Yeah, communicating difficult decisions as well as having those critical conversations in real world itself is challenging, and it is much more challenging in the remote environment because we will not get to know to read their body language completely, right?
Right.
We just try to look at their face and all, and yeah, I completely agree with you. And now let's talk about the team building aspects within this remote work environment. Like, what should somebody focus if it is a first timer or even a seasoned manager? Because this is how probably is the first time, right, in our, at least in our lifetime, where we are experiencing this kind of setting and all, and this is going to continue, right? It is not something like a thing in the past, and it is going to be part and parcel of our lives managing the remote teams, and it is going to increase further. So in this whole scenario, what would be the aspects in terms of building effective teams in the remote environment?
Sure. First aspect I would talk about is team meeting structure. So every team has meetings maybe once a week, once in 2 weeks, once a month. And what generally happens, I have seen, is that the team leader or manager who runs the team, he or she chairs the meeting, sets the agenda, and talks most of the time. Now, this is good, but I think one experiment I did with my team is that I realized that with that format I just explained, I don't see a lot of participation from my team members. So I launched a survey and I said, okay, guys, tell me what is working, what is not working. First feedback came to me was that the frequency is too much. We don't want to meet every week. I said, okay. Then they said, okay, this time of the day is not working because early morning we have other things to do. We can be more productive instead of getting into a team meeting. Third thing is that the team meeting we have now, you speak most of the time. So we also get the opportunity to speak. So I made those changes where I said, okay, we'll change the frequency, we'll meet less. We will decide that on a rotation, someone will share the meeting and that person will decide the agenda. So that brings empowerment to the team, and that worked. Second point I'll talk about is focusing on a collaboration tool. Now we have a lot of collaboration tool. So using effectively those tools would be very useful, because we use emails to send files, and there are multiple versions of changes people are saving on their local drive. So my recommendation would be, think about what's the collaboration tool you can use, where you can share files, you can exchange messages, even you can call a person or create a team meeting, so that you can have one tool for collaboration instead of using emails, using your instant messenger, calling people. So that saves a lot of time, and again, it feels like we are part of the same team. Third thing is getting feedback from the team. I would say once in every few months. And one of my mentor taught me these things. Whenever you ask feedback, there are, if you look at any survey, there are three themes. One is that what's working well. Second is that what is not working well, you should stop. And third thing is that what you should continue doing. So ask those questions to your team, to your management. And that's the first part. Second part is that once you get feedback, you need to commit to those feedback to implement changes with the timeline. So these three aspects of team meeting, collaboration tool, and taking periodic feedback would help you building team within a country, across countries.
Mhm. This reminds me of start, stop, continue. Right? Of
Right.
course, whatever you conveyed is the same thing, but this is the acronym that we typically use in the corporate environment. Continue what you are doing well, and start something new, and stop what you shouldn't be doing or not. You are not supposed to do it. Now let's talk about mistakes. Other than one mistake that I noticed based on your previous responses, team leader doing all the talk and setting the agenda, which you have handled tactfully by giving that facilitation option on rotation basis. In fact, I have also followed that in my previous organization settings and all, and it works wonders. And the way I have empowered teams is I told them, hey, you come up with a unique idea. Okay, it need not just be about going around the table and talking about the updates or the talking about the impediments related to the deliverables. Rather, engage the team, right? So every time out of these 60 minutes, first 10 minutes should go for some game or some sort of engagement. And this game, whatever team member A is conducting, it should not be repeated by team member B. That guy should come with a different thought process, right? I thought I'd mention this aspect. And now, talking about the mistakes, what other than team leader himself or herself owning the entire agenda and setting it, driving and doing all the talk track, are there any other mistakes which managers are doing in the remote work environment?
Yeah, there are several. I'll highlight three. One is micromanagement. What happens is that you don't know what your team members are working on, and because you are not sitting next to them or in the same office, comes naturally. I've seen in some of the team leaders to micromanage, where you keep asking what's going on, send me a status update every day, or every 2 days. Can you get to a daily call? So there is a tendency, which I would say unconsciously a lot of managers starts doing, because there's a FOMO. What's my team members doing? I don't know. So that's number one. I think we need to be mindful about as a manager, that okay, am I micromanaging my team? Second is that how to share feedback, which we touched early on in a remote environment. For example, if you're doing an appraisal discussion, and again, depending on the organization, if it permits, I would suggest that you should share the material well in advance for the team member to read and be prepared, instead of getting into a call and talking about what's going well, what's not going well. uh, that's important. And while sharing a feedback, I would say book a time in advance, not in the last moment. That helps. And also ask the person, because since it's a remote, that okay, is this time work for you? Because maybe that person has to take care of a child or take care of parents, and you need to be mindful about, okay, the person should be in a right frame of mind where having feedback discussion, it cannot be distracted because the home environment. So checking that in advance, it helps. And third thing is that, and this, what I have noticed is more for a global team, when you work with multiple stakeholders or clients, conscious of time zone and holidays. Because see, I've seen, like, within India also, sometimes different cities you have different holidays, and we are not mindful about those things, and also the time zone, because especially in a global organization, for example, 8 a.m. in New York is 8 p.m. in Singapore. So I think you need to be mindful about when setting up, those meetings so that it serves purpose for everyone. So be cautious about micromanagement, be mindful about how you're sharing feedback, the environment, and third about the time zone of setting up meetings.
Yeah. See, time zone thing has been a problem. Like not just before, not that it is relevant to remote work, but it has been a problem. And one thing what I used to suggest some of the leaders is why don't you schedule the meetings on rotation basis? Sometimes you can do in your morning time, sometimes you do it in your evening times. That way
Right.
people can balance, right? Because many a times what happens is people that are in India or in the Asian countries, they tend to stretch over their evenings and the late nights and all, right? So it can be rotated, right? Wherein our counterparts from the US, right? Sometimes they can stay long. I mean, stay up in the evening, and that way it actually promotes that sort of camaraderie, and at the same time, it gives flexibility, saying that okay, we are all one team kind of thing, rather than getting into a situation wherein onshore team is outsourcing everything to offshore, and then they are kind of giving and we are on the receiving part, right? So that would be my advice. I don't know, like if there might be many more principles which others might be practicing. I would, for the audience, like in case if you have any inputs in terms of how can we better collaborate dealing with various time zones, so that there is a right and fine balance across the time zones. If at all you guys have any inputs, definitely feel free to comment. If you are watching it on YouTube, comment on the video comment section, or else you can drop a note on social media wherever you found the link. All
No,
right,
yeah,
so
that's a great point in terms of, again, we are talking about collaboration. I think that's a
right,
real life example.
yeah.
We are doing this podcast and then we are ensuring that there is a collaboration opportunity for the audience so that all of you feel part of this podcast. It's not like one way communication. So, yeah, that's a great point. I mean,
Absolutely. See, because here we are providing a platform and facilitating interactions from people whom we know or whom we have approached. But there are so many other leaders out there with wonderful points, and they can definitely chime in, right? Yeah. All right. So, moving to the next question, what are some best practices that you have observed in the remote communication, Mitadru?
one, I think, and I'll talk about like three things. One is virtual team building sessions, which I have seen that really work, where you set up meetings, and there are so many team building options available these days. I would suggest you really need to get to know your team personally as well. And again, I'm not saying that you need to know like 100% someone in person, whatever, to what extent that person is comfortable sharing the person who he or she is. I think that's very important. So virtual team building sessions, I would suggest definitely plan it maybe once a month, once in 2 months, where you don't talk about work, you just spend time with each other in team building session. Striking a balance of check-ins with employees. There is no one size fits all. In some situations, an employee, due to the pandemic situation or the personal situation, maybe needs more handholding than others. So as a manager, you really need to figure out, okay, with Satish, I need to spend maybe twice every week. But with Amrita, maybe I need to spend once in 2 weeks. So striking that balance based on what employee thinks you need, because as I mentioned at the beginning, that everyone is different. So you need to balance the frequency of check-ins based on your employee needs. And third is that how you can make organic networking between team members, because what happens that we do have like coffee chat or general networking session, where okay, you just go and chat with people, but within the team, where you see that there is an opportunity of a project where you can bring in two individuals maybe who are not interacting otherwise, bring them together in a project, and that will create an organic networking opportunity for them beyond the project, which would help and also strengthen your team. So yeah, I think virtual team building sessions, balance of frequency of check-ins, and creating organic networking opportunities for team members.
I love this striking the balance of chickens and all. Yeah, because we can't follow this one size fits all, right? Depending on the personality, somebody might need a lot of hand holding, and somebody might be a self starter with minimal or no support. They can just act like a go-getter kind of thing. Wonderful point. All right, so Mitadru, this has been.
Sorry, Navin. I'll add one more point.
Yeah, yeah. Go
As
ahead.
we are talking, it just came to my mind is that we and in our organization we talked about different personalities. We have introvert and extrovert. Extrovert are the people who are always forthcoming, share ideas. Introverts, they may not feel confident or comfortable. I should not say confident, comfortable sharing ideas in a forum. So when you're doing a brainstorming sessions, and again, most of the virtual meeting tool has a chat option. So again, maybe think about using the chat option where you may know the person who are not comfortable speaking up can put their ideas in the chat, and in that way they are also engaged and part of the conversation. It's not like you need to unmute yourself and talk if you're not comfortable. So again, that will also encourage diversity of thoughts and ideas in a remote environment.
Yeah. In fact, I came across a new idea recently. I read an article and which spoke about brain writing rather than brainstorming. Because
Mm-hmm.
in brainstorming sessions, as you mentioned, typically extroverts might be speaking a lot, and ambiverts might speak with a slight nudge, and introverts need a little more push. Right?
Right.
It's not that introverts don't have ideas; they have a lot of ideas. So what this guy, if I remember correctly, I think it is proposed by Adam Grant.
Okay.
Okay, Adam Grant. What he said is go for brain writing. Okay, in case if you want to have your team members come up with ideas, give them the problem statement and let them work offline and come up with ideas to the meeting directly. Okay, then you can go through them and bucketize them, prioritize them rather than asking them on the fly. Right, this will give an opportunity for everybody to think through and all. Right, so I think it made sense. In fact, we use these kind of techniques in the Lean Six Sigma world.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, right. So I really love that concept, and it is truly relevant in today's hybrid slash virtual work environments and all. All right, so great conversation, Mitadru, but let's add some spice to the episode. If you are okay, I'm going to kick off a rapid fire round.
Yeah, sure.
All
Will I
right.
get a hamper like coffee with Karan?
Yeah, coffee. Definitely, you can expect coffee with Karan. All
Okay, I'm
right.
all set.
All right, great. So, can you share your strength and a weakness with our audience?
My strength is responsiveness, punctuality. Weakness, I check emails too frequently. I need to control that.
I think we share both of them. Like that's a commonality. Both the strength as well as weakness, kind of. The responsiveness is a strength as well as a weakness as well, right? Because we tend to jump into it and provide quick solutions and all. Yeah. Interesting. Moving to the next one. What is the best piece of advice that you have received so far?
Yeah, the best piece of advice I received one of my managers was that success comes with diversity of thoughts. You need to hire people who are very different from you, and that is the recipe for your success.
Such a profound statement. Yeah, diversity of thoughts, and that comes from diverse set of audience. Right. Wonderful. Moving to the next one. What is one life-changing incident that changed your perspective altogether?
So this happened 7 years back when I came across a WhatsApp video where now he's my current teacher. He talked about from where we can learn productivity, and he said you can learn productivity from a child. Why? Because a child never worries about the past and not get anxious about the future. He or she is always at the present. So that was a life changing incident that I never thought I can learn productivity from a child.
Indeed. Yeah, yeah. Makes sense. Absolute sense. Moving to the next one. Speed versus perfection. I think you answered it. It is speed, right?
Yes, it is speed. And I think I need to move toward perfection.
Yeah, great rapid fire. And let me move to the last one. What is one fantasy gadget or electronic gadget that you like to see or invent yourself?
If I look at all of us, what we do personally or professionally, all we are doing this one reason, that is to get happiness. So I want to come up with a gadget which can measure our internal happiness, so that when you're taking an action, we can measure are you really happy or not. Or if you make a decision for others, can we measure that whether that person is really happy for which we are making a decision?
Such a creative idea. Wonderful. All right. I thoroughly enjoyed the rapid fire. And with that, let's flip back to the mainstream. And before I let you go, one final question for today's conversation, Mitadru. what will be your biggest or one piece of advice to those aspiring to make big in their lives or careers? You can pick either of them.
Yeah, so this podcast is called The Guiding Voice, and one of the great Indian saints quoted that no matter of lecture will help you until you can lecture yourself. So the real guiding voice is within yourself. You're getting all this advice, but you need to ask yourself, okay, what suits you, and apply that. So apply the true guiding voice which is inside you.
I loved it. Yeah, it makes sense, right? But eventually, like in case if you were to apply our own inner guidance and all, and if you are able to know what we don't know, then that's where the fulfillment happens, and that's when the entire realization happens, and we can move towards the right path, right? Yeah, such a profound statement, and I really enjoyed every bit of this conversation with Adru, and it was great talking to you. And thank you so much for your time and all the wonderful insights.
Thank you, Navin. Thanks for inviting me. I had a great chat with you, and I hope all our listeners and viewers have the same. And as Navin mentioned, see, it's all about collaboration. It's about sharing ideas. It doesn't matter where you are from, who you are. Just share ideas. I think together, all of us share ideas and make each other a better professional as well as a better person. So, thank
Wonderful.
you for the opportunity.
Yeah. Pleasure to host you. And on that note, I would like to continue my appeal to what Mitadru had said. In case if you have any topic recommendations or speaker suggestions, or if you want to join as a guest speaker, just shout out on social media network. You'll find me as Navin Samala, or email me on theguidingvoiceforyou@gmail.com. Now, let's hop into the trivia segment of today's episode. Today's trivia is about impact of remote jobs. So today we learned some excellent tips and tricks from Mitadru on how to make the remote communication work for you efficiently and effectively. I thought I'll present you few facts related to the impact of remote jobs. The flexibility of remote work actually improves quality of life as well as benefits both mental and physical health in a variety of ways. As per a survey from a prominent business magazine, what they found out is it helps the remote jobs helps people take better care of their mental health. In fact, 80% of the respondents mentioned that. And about 83% of the respondents conveyed that it decreases their level of stress, and about 67% of them said it increases the time they spend exercising, because the time that they are saving through commute, right, it is being used effectively. I'm the live example. Whatever the time I am saving from commute, by avoiding the commute to office, I'm using it for cycling. I'm cycling almost at least 1 hour a day, and it's working really well, right? So likewise, there are so many benefits from remote work, and in case if you have come across any other benefits, please feel free to comment either on the YouTube or through social media. And that's all for today, guys. Thank you so much for listening and watching. I'm your host, Navin Samala, just a fellow IT professional, but on a mission to shape the careers and lives of millions across the globe. Until next time, bye bye. See you all in the next episode.